He wished his pregnant wife would vanish, but he never imagined she would disappear with the power to destroy him. In a mansion on the cold edge of Lake Michigan, Evelyn Carter Bishop stood barefoot outside her husband's locked office, one hand pressed to the door, the other protecting the child beneath her heart. Inside, Roman Bishop, Chicago's most feared Mafia king, spoke about her like she was a problem waiting to be erased. Maybe you know that feeling, loving someone who slowly turns protection into control, smiling in a beautiful room while your soul is begging for a way out. This is not just a story about revenge. It is about survival, motherhood, hidden power, and the moment a woman stops asking for mercy. Stay until the end, because Evelyn's silence is about to become Roman's ruin. Like this video and comment where you're watching from. Evelyn's silence did not mean she was calm. It meant the scream had gone too deep to reach her mouth. She sat in the nursery until the rain softened against the windows, and the mansion settled into its usual midnight stillness. Her palm rested over the place where her daughter had kicked moments earlier, as if the child had heard Roman too. The room smelled of fresh paint, lavender detergent, and untouched money. Cream curtains, a white crib, a rocking chair imported from Italy because Roman said American furniture lacked grace. Everything was beautiful. Nothing felt hers. Downstairs, behind a locked office door, Roman Bishop had spoken of her like a loose thread on one of his tailored suits. Something to be cut before anyone noticed. A wife, a vessel, a mistake with a heartbeat under her ribs. Evelyn looked at the crib and tried to remember when love had first started to feel like a room with no exits. It had not felt that way in the beginning. In the beginning, Roman Bishop had arrived in her life like weather. 6 months after her father's funeral, Chicago was gray with late autumn rain, and Evelyn Carter had learned how grief could turn even familiar streets strange. She still worked at the financial firm on Wacker Drive, still wore clean blouses and sensible heels, still answered emails with perfect punctuation. From the outside, she looked functional. From the inside, she felt hollowed out. Her father, Warren Carter, had died on a wet highway outside Springfield. The official report said mechanical failure, a blown brake line, a bad curve, bad luck. Everyone said it with the soft voices people used around daughters in black dresses. Bad luck. Evelyn had nodded. She had signed papers. She had accepted casseroles from neighbors she barely knew. She had stood beside a closed casket because the crash had left too much damage for a proper goodbye. But a small, hard part of her never believed in bad luck. Warren Carter had not been an ordinary man. He had been quiet, precise, and careful with powerful people's secrets. He built legal structures for men who owned shipping companies, casinos, private hospitals, luxury developments, and charities with names that sounded clean enough to bless. He never explained much to Evelyn, but she had grown up reading silence in the set of his jaw. Some clients called too late at night. Some meetings made him pour whiskey before dinner. Some names were never spoken twice. After his death, Evelyn found herself living with unanswered questions and a grief that had no place to go. She avoided parties. She ignored invitations. She walked home in the cold because taxis felt too intimate. Every man in a dark coat made her glance twice. Then Roman saw her at the charity gala. The event was held inside a hotel ballroom near the Chicago River, all crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, and women laughing like they had never once paid a bill late. Evelyn had only attended because her father's old firm purchased a table in his memory. She wore a black satin dress she hated and stood near a window watching headlights smear across the rain-slick streets below. That was when Roman Bishop approached her. He was taller than she expected, with dark hair combed back from a face that looked carved rather than born. His suit was black, his shirt white, his watch understated and expensive. He did not rush. Men like Roman never rushed because they believed the world would wait. He stopped beside her and looked out at the city instead of at her. "Chicago looks honest from up here," he said. Evelyn almost laughed. That is probably how you know it is lying. His mouth curved. That was the first thing she noticed. Not the money, not the power, the smile. It was slight, controlled, and private, like he had chosen to give her something no one else in the room had earned. "You are Warren Carter's daughter," he said. The sound of her father's name made her chest tighten. "I am. I respected him. Most people say they liked him. I am not most people." No, she thought. He was not. Roman did not offer pity. He did not tell her father was in a better place. He did not ask how she was holding up, which was a mercy, because she was not holding up at all. He simply stood beside her close enough to make the room feel less crowded. "Your father had a rare mind," Roman said. "He could see the bones inside a building before anyone poured concrete." Evelyn looked at him then. "You knew his work. I knew enough to admire it." There was something careful in his answer, but grief made Evelyn less sharp than usual. She wanted to hear that her father had mattered. Roman gave her that without asking for tears in return. They spoke for 20 minutes, maybe less. It stayed with her for weeks. Roman asked about her work, and unlike most men at those events, he listened to the answer. When she mentioned risk modeling, he smiled as if the phrase pleased him. "A woman who understands risk is harder to fool," he said, "or easier to bore. I doubt you are easy to bore, Evelyn." He said her name like he had known it before walking over. By the end of the night, he had not asked for her number. He had simply handed her his card and said, "Call me when you get tired of people treating you like glass." She should have thrown the card away. Instead, she carried it in her purse for 9 days. On the 10th, she called. Their first dinner was at a small Italian restaurant in River North, not the grand place she expected. Roman chose a back table where the light was low and the waiter knew not to interrupt. He ordered in a quiet voice. He asked questions that made her feel seen in dangerous ways. What did she miss most about her father? What did people misunderstand about grief? When did loneliness feel worst? Morning or night? No one had asked her that. Night, she admitted fingers around the stem of her wine glass. During the day, there is noise. At night, everything gets honest. Roman watched her across the candlelight. Then you should not be alone at night. It sounded tender. It sounded like a promise. Looking back, Evelyn would remember the exact warmth that moved through her when he said it. She would hate herself a little for that warmth, then forgive herself later because hunger could make poison taste like food. Roman knew how to arrive. Flowers appeared at her office. Not red roses, which would have been too obvious, but white tulips, because she once mentioned her mother loved them. A driver waited downstairs when it rained. A new security system was installed at her apartment after Roman said the city had changed and he would sleep better knowing she was protected. At first, she protested. "You cannot just arrange things around my life," she told him. Roman touched her cheek with 2 fingers, soft enough to feel like restraint dressed as affection. "I can, when your life matters to me." There it was again. Protection. Attention. Certainty. All the things grief made her crave. He took her to quiet dinners, private art showings, rooftop terraces where the city glittered beneath them. He did not kiss her right away. He waited. He let tension build until she began wondering what his hands would feel like on her waist. When he finally kissed her, it was outside her apartment door after snow had begun falling over the city. His coat smelled like cedar and smoke. His palm rested at the back of her neck, not forcing, just holding. Evelyn forgot to be careful. 3 months later, Roman asked her to move into his Lake Forest estate. She said it was too soon. He said time meant nothing when 2 people already understood the shape of each other's loneliness. She laughed because it sounded dramatic. He did not laugh. "I am serious about you," he said. "I do not keep serious things at a distance." The estate sat beyond iron gates at the end of a long private drive with Lake Michigan stretching cold and silver behind it. The first time Evelyn saw it, she thought of old money, though Roman's money was not old. It was hungry money, built fast, polished hard, guarded well. The staff greeted her by name before she had introduced herself. Mrs. Rosa Bell, the housekeeper, had kind brown eyes and a way of seeing too much while appearing to notice nothing. She took Evelyn's coat and said, "Welcome home, Miss Carter." Home. The word landed strangely. Roman gave Evelyn a tour like a man unveiling a kingdom. The dining room could seat 20. The wine cellar required a thumbprint. The indoor pool glowed blue beneath glass ceilings. The master suite overlooked the lake, all pale silk and dark wood. And that Evelyn asked, nodding toward a hallway in the east wing. Roman's hand settled at the small of her back. "My office. Do I get the tour?" His smile did not change, but something behind it closed. Not that room. She raised an eyebrow. "Mysterious." "Boring," he corrected. "Contracts, calls. Men pretending numbers make them important." "I like numbers. I like your peace more." At the time, she let it pass. That was how it began. Not with a slammed door. With a door she was told not to open in a voice soft enough to sound loving. The proposal came in January on a rooftop garden enclosed in glass high above downtown Chicago. Snow moved around them like ash. Roman had arranged candles, white tulips, and a string quartet hidden somewhere behind winter greenery. Evelyn cried before he even knelt. She had been lonely for so long, and here was a man offering a life so solid it seemed impossible to lose. "Let me build something around you," Roman said, opening the ring box. Evelyn looked at the diamond, then at him. "That sounds like a lot of walls, only the kind that keep storms out." She said yes. The wedding followed quickly. Too quickly, some people whispered. Evelyn heard them and ignored them. Grief had taught her life could vanish without warning. Roman used that truth like a key. The ceremony filled the society pages. A lakefront church, white flowers, a reception inside a private club where judges, developers, politicians, art dealers, and men with quiet eyes raised glasses to the happy couple. Roman danced with her under chandeliers and held her close enough that she could feel his heartbeat. "You are safe now," he whispered. Evelyn closed her eyes and believed him. For a while, safety looked like luxury. A closet full of clothes she had not chosen. A calendar managed by Roman's assistant. A driver named Paul who appeared whenever she stepped outside. A new phone with special security features. A household account. A private doctor. A trainer. A stylist. When Evelyn said she wanted to return to work after the honeymoon, Roman frowned as if she had suggested sleeping on a sidewalk. "You do not need to work. I know I do not need to. I want to. My wife should not sit in an office under fluorescent lights while men with half your intelligence tell you what to do. That is not what my job is. It is beneath you. It is mine." Roman took her hand across the breakfast table. His thumb moved over her wedding ring. "Evelyn, I can give you room to breathe. Let me." He made quitting sound like freedom, so she resigned. Her co-workers threw a lunch. Her manager said the door would always be open. Her closest friend from the office, Natalie, hugged her hard and whispered, "Are you sure?" Evelyn said yes. A month later, when Natalie called, Roman was in the room. Evelyn let the call go to voicemail. Later, she forgot to call back. Then more weeks passed. Roman began shaping her public life with the same patience he used in private. Cream dresses for charity events because they made her look gentle. Pearls instead of diamonds during the day because diamonds looked too hungry. Hair down when meeting donors. Hair up when attending court dinners. Smile at aldermen. Avoid reporters unless Roman introduced them. Never speak about policy. Never mention her father's client work. "You make it sound like I am being trained." Evelyn said one evening as a stylist pinned her hair. Roman adjusted his cufflinks in the mirror. Everyone in our world is trained. Our world. His eyes met hers in the glass. You married into it. The stylist kept pinning eyes lowered. Evelyn felt something small and cold move through the room. When she became pregnant, Roman changed again. Not softer, more focused. He announced it at a foundation dinner before Evelyn had told anyone besides the doctor. She sat beside him under golden lights while applause rose around them. Roman placed a careful hand over her belly and smiled for cameras. My wife and I are blessed, he said. Family is the future of any legacy. Legacy. That word followed them everywhere. At galas, men clapped Roman on the shoulder and asked if he hoped for a son. Women smiled at Evelyn and told her she must be thrilled. Reporters called Roman a devoted husband. Donors praised the Bishop Family Foundation for its commitment to mothers and children. At home, Roman barely asked how she felt. He did ask what she ate, which doctor she saw, whether she had taken her vitamins, whether she had walked too far, whether she had spoken to anyone he did not know. One afternoon, Evelyn came downstairs wearing a blue maternity dress she liked because it made her feel almost like herself. Roman looked up from his phone. Not that one. She stopped near the foot of the stairs. Why, it does not photograph well. I am not being photographed. You never know. Evelyn looked down at the soft blue fabric. I like it. Roman's gaze sharpened just a little. Change. The word was quiet. The staff in the foyer went still. Evelyn changed. That night she stood in the bathroom and stared at herself in a cream dress Roman preferred. Her belly had just begun to round. Her face looked calm, but her eyes looked like someone standing behind glass. She pressed both hands to the sink and whispered, "This is not normal." The words sounded dramatic in the expensive silence. So she swallowed them. The estate made that easy. It swallowed things too. Footsteps vanished into thick rugs. Arguments disappeared behind heavy doors. Tears dried under perfect lighting. Every room was designed to impress visitors, not comfort the woman living inside it. Evelyn tried to make small rebellions. She walked alone in the garden. Paul followed 20 feet behind her. She ordered books about financial crime and corporate corruption. They never arrived. She asked Rosa if mail sometimes went missing. Rosa folded a linen napkin twice before answering. In this house, things go where Mr. Bishop wants them to go. Evelyn studied her. Does that include people? Rosa did not answer. That was answer enough. The phone became another wall. Evelyn's old contacts seemed to disappear one by one. Natalie's number was gone. Her cousin's address was gone. Photos from before Roman moved into a hidden archive she had not created. When she confronted him, he did not deny it. I cleaned up your phone, Roman said, pouring coffee in the breakfast room. You deleted people. I removed noise. They were my friends. They were loose ends from a life you no longer live. Evelyn stood very still. You do not get to decide that. Roman set down the coffee pot with careful precision. Careful, sweetheart. One word. Careful. Not shouted. Not cruel on its face. But the room changed around it. Evelyn felt the baby flutter inside her for the first time that morning. A tiny movement almost like a secret knock. She placed a hand over her belly. Roman noticed. His expression softened in a way that had nothing to do with her. There he is, he murmured. Evelyn looked up. Roman smiled. Wishful thinking. She wanted to say, and if it is a girl, she did not. By then, silence had become one of her survival habits. There were others. She learned which hallways had cameras. She learned which guards worked mornings and which ones smoked near the garage after midnight. She learned that Roman's temper was worst after calls from older men in New York. She learned not to ask about bruised knuckles, late-night meetings, or why certain guests entered through the side gate instead of the front door. She learned that the Bishop Family Foundation held charity luncheons for women in crisis, while Roman's men joked about difficult wives over whiskey in the library. She learned that power could wear a wedding ring, and still some part of her kept searching for the man from the ballroom, the man who stood beside her grief without touching it too roughly. The man who said she should not be alone at night. Sometimes Roman returned to that man for an hour. He would bring her tea, touch her hair, ask if the baby was moving, kiss her forehead before leaving for another meeting. Those moments confused her more than cruelty did. Cruelty gave shape to fear. Tenderness made her question her own memory. One evening in late spring, she found him in the nursery standing beside the crib. He looked almost gentle in the soft light. "I want the child to have strength," he said. Evelyn leaned against the doorway. "Children need more than strength. They need protection. They need love." Roman turned his head slightly. "Love is protection." "No," Evelyn said softly. "Sometimes protection is just control with better manners." His eyes rested on her for a long moment. Then he smiled. "You have been reading too much." The next day, the nursery books she had ordered were replaced with a stack of parenting guides selected by Roman's assistant. That was when Evelyn remembered the lockbox. Not fully. Not yet. Just a flash of steel. Her father's hands. The smell of his study, his voice lower than usual. It had been 1 week before his death. Warren Carter had called her to the old house in Evanston. She found him in his study blinds, half closed, though it was afternoon. Papers covered the desk. He looked thinner than he had at Christmas. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, and there was a small cut near his thumb. On the desk sat a steel lockbox. "Take this," he said. Evelyn frowned. "Dad, what is going on? Listen to me first." "I am listening." "No, you are waiting for me to sound reasonable. I need you to listen, even if I do not." That frightened her. He pushed the box toward her. "If anything happens to me, this becomes important." "Anything like what?" He rubbed a hand over his face. "I spent too many years helping dangerous men look respectable. I told myself paperwork was not blood, that structure was not violence, that if I did not ask what moved through the doors I built, I could sleep. Dad, I was wrong." Evelyn looked at the box, then at him. "What is inside leverage? Protection? Keys? To what?" "To the foundations under several empires, including one here in Chicago." She almost laughed because it sounded absurd. Her father, who made pancakes on Sundays and saved grocery coupons, speaking like a man in a spy film. But Warren was not smiling. "If one of them ever gets too close to you, if someone tries to use you, own you, or silence you, open it." "One of who?" His eyes filled with something she did not understand then. "My monsters." She took the box because he asked her to. She put it in her closet. After he died, she moved it from apartment to apartment without opening it. It felt too much like admitting he had known death was coming. When she married Roman, the box came with her to Lake Forest. She hid it in the back of her dressing room behind shoes Roman liked and she hated. For months it sat there in the dark, waiting. Now, after hearing Roman wish her gone, Evelyn stood in that same dressing room while dawn thinned the windows from black to gray. Roman had not come upstairs yet. The house was still. Her nightgown brushed her ankles as she knelt on the floor and pulled shoe boxes aside with shaking hands. There it was. Plain steel. Small. Heavy. Not beautiful. Not like anything Roman owned. Her father's key was taped beneath the velvet lining of an old jewelry case. Evelyn had kept it without knowing why. She peeled it free and held it between two fingers. For a moment she could not move. Opening the box meant accepting that the life she had tried to preserve was already gone. It meant the voice behind the office door was not a nightmare. It meant her father had seen Roman's world more clearly than she had. From downstairs came the faint sound of a door closing. Roman leaving for the morning. Evelyn turned the key. The lock clicked open. Inside were folders, flash drives, sealed envelopes, account ledgers, and a handwritten letter with her name across the front. Evelyn stared at the letter. Her father's handwriting was firm, slanted, unmistakable. She touched it once as if touching his hand through time. Then she opened it. The first line made the room tilt beneath her. My Evelyn, if you are reading this, then one of my monsters has found you. For a long moment she could not breathe. The paper trembled between her fingers. Her father had been dead for 2 years, yet his voice rose from the page with such painful clarity that the closet seemed to shrink around her. She could almost see him in his old study sleeves rolled to his elbows, glasses low on his nose, his expression caught between love and regret. She kept reading. I am sorry I gave men like him a cleaner way to sin. I am sorry I ever believed distance made me innocent. I built walls on paper, Evelyn. Companies inside companies, foundations inside trusts, clean money wrapped around dirty money until no one could see the stain unless they knew where to look. Evelyn pressed a hand to her mouth. Roman had said her father's connections died with him. He had been wrong. The letter continued. Some of those structures were designed for Roman Bishop. He will never tell you that. Men like Roman think ownership is the same as loyalty. They sign documents without reading what they cannot imagine anyone using against them. That arrogance is the only mercy God left in men like that. Inside this box are the documents, passwords, and legal triggers I created before my death. They do not make you safe by themselves. Nothing does. But they give you leverage. If Roman or anyone like him tries to control you, silence you, or use you, you can take from him the thing he worships most, his empire. The word landed like thunder in the small room. Evelyn lowered the letter and looked at the steel box. It no longer seemed like an object. It seemed like a door her father had left open from the grave. She read the final lines twice. Do not use this out of anger. Anger burns fast. Use it only if survival demands it. Use it with patience. Use it with witnesses. Use it in daylight if you can. And remember this, my brave girl. The first rule of escaping powerful men is never let them know the moment you stopped being afraid. Evelyn folded the letter carefully, though her hands were still shaking. Downstairs, a car engine started, Roman leaving for the city. She waited until the sound faded beyond the gates. Then she locked the bedroom door, carried the box into the nursery, and spread her father's secrets across the cream-colored rug. Folders, corporate charts, trust agreements, letters of authority, photocopies of signatures, flash drives labeled with dates and initials. A slim black notebook filled with numbers that looked meaningless until she noticed the repeated names. Bishop Family Foundation, North Pier Shipping Group, Whitestone Gallery, Lake County Development Trust, Horizon Medical Holdings. Each name sounded respectable. Each one had appeared in Roman's world as naturally as air. The foundation hosted benefit dinners. The shipping company sponsored youth programs. The gallery held auctions for collectors with quiet faces and heavier wallets. The real estate trust owned buildings across Chicago, Milwaukee, and parts of Indiana. Evelyn had sat beside Roman at dinners where people praised these companies as proof of his civic heart. Now she saw the bones beneath the skin. Her father had drawn arrows between entities. Money moved from shipping accounts into gallery purchases, from gallery sales into foundation donations, from foundation grants into development projects, from real estate income back into private accounts that did not carry Roman's name. It was not a business network. It was a bloodstream. For 6 hours, Evelyn read until the words blurred. She drank cold tea she did not remember making. She ate crackers because the baby kicked hard enough to scold her. She made notes in a small leather journal Roman had bought her in Paris, the kind meant for romantic thoughts, not the dissection of a criminal empire. By late afternoon, one truth was clear. Warren Carter had not merely protected his daughter. He had buried control switches beneath Roman Bishop's polished world. Certain assets listed Warren's estate as a silent interest holder. Certain foundation clauses activated upon breach of fiduciary conduct. Certain trust votes transferred to Warren's designated heir if the principal party used the entities for unlawful concealment. Several documents named Evelyn outright, but in language so dense and layered that only someone who knew what to search for would notice. Roman had been standing on a floor her father built. Evelyn placed both hands over her belly and whispered, "Your grandfather was complicated." The baby moved once slow and firm. "Yes," Evelyn said softly. "That is one word for it." That evening, she put everything back exactly as she found it. The steel box returned to the closet. The folders were arranged in the same order. The key went beneath the jewelry lining. When Roman came home, she was sitting in the living room with a pregnancy book open in her lap. He smelled of cigar smoke and winter air. "You look pale," he said. "I did not sleep well. You worry too much." Evelyn looked down at the page. "Maybe." Roman leaned over and kissed the top of her head. To anyone watching, the gesture might have looked tender. Evelyn felt possession in the weight of his hand on her shoulder. "Rest," he said. "Stress is bad for the baby." She nearly laughed. Instead, she smiled. "I will." That became her first real weapon. Not the documents, not the passwords, the smile. For the next week, Evelyn became everything Roman expected her to be. Soft, quiet, tired, pretty in cream dresses. She asked no questions when he left after dinner. She did not complain when he canceled a doctor's appointment he had promised to attend. She let him touch her belly in front of guests and stepped away only after the cameras lowered. Inside, she was learning him. Roman checked his office lock with his right hand. He typed the code quickly, but the hallway mirror caught 4 digits when he stood at the right angle. His guards changed shifts at 11. The camera above the east wing turned away for 9 seconds during its rotation. The cleaning staff entered his office only on Tuesdays, always with one of his men nearby. Evelyn watched, counted, memorized. On the 8th night, Roman left for a private meeting downtown. The house sank into its usual hush. Evelyn waited in bed for 1 hour, then another. At 12:30, she rose and dressed in black leggings, a loose sweater, and soft socks. Her heart beat so loudly she thought the cameras might hear it. She moved through the upstairs corridor, down the side staircase, and into the east wing. The office door waited at the end of the hall, dark wood brass handle, no sound behind it. She entered the code. 1 wrong number, and the alarm would summon men with guns. 3, 7, 9, 1, 2. The lock clicked. Evelyn stood frozen, stunned by success. Then she slipped inside. Roman's office looked exactly like him. Dark, expensive, controlled. Leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling shelves, a wall safe hidden behind a painting of the Chicago skyline, a glass decanter half full of whiskey. The desk was immaculate, not a paper out of place. She had less than 20 minutes. Evelyn photographed everything. A file labeled domestic planning, custody drafts, a memorandum from a private attorney describing possible emergency guardianship routes in the event of maternal instability. Her hands went cold when she found the medical correspondence. Horizon House Wellness Center, Colorado. Discreet long-term treatment options for high-profile family members experiencing postpartum psychosis, emotional volatility, or delusional thinking. Attached was a draft intake profile. Name, Evelyn Carter Bishop. Expected delivery, January. Risk factors: grief history, social isolation, possible paranoia, refusal to comply with recommended household care plan. Evelyn stared at the words until rage steadied her fingers. Roman had not been waiting to see if she broke. He was building the record that she already had. She copied files from his computer onto a flash drive. She photographed account summaries. She found 3 bank accounts opened under variations of her name, each seeded with small transfers from questionable sources. A perfect future accusation. A wife moving dirty money. A mother unfit. A woman confused enough to sign what she did not understand. Then the hallway floor creaked. Evelyn shut the drawer too quickly. A shadow passed beneath the door. She dropped behind the desk, one hand clamped over her mouth, the other wrapped around her belly. The baby turned inside her, pressing hard against her ribs. The door opened. Light from the hallway spread across the rug. A guard stepped in. Evelyn recognized him. Tall blonde named Travis or Trevor. Roman's men all had clean haircuts and dead eyes. He paused. Evelyn saw his shoes from beneath the desk. Black leather, polished. Still. He crossed the room. Her lungs burned. The guard picked up Roman's whiskey glass from the side table, sniffed it, then set it down. He looked around once more, bored but thorough. His phone buzzed. He answered in a low voice. "Yeah. Nothing here." He left. The door closed. Evelyn stayed on the floor until her legs cramped. When she finally crawled out, tears had slipped down her face without permission. She wiped them away with the back of her hand and kept working. By 1:15 she was back in bed. By 1:40 Roman came home. He undressed in the dark and slid in beside her. Awake, he murmured. Evelyn kept her breathing slow. Roman touched her hip, then her belly. His palm rested there for a few seconds. Soon he whispered. She did not know whether he meant the baby or her destruction. Either way, she lay still until dawn. The next morning, Mrs. Rosa Bell found Evelyn in the laundry room staring at a basket of folded towels as if she had forgotten what towels were for. Rosa said nothing at first. She only shut the laundry room door. "You want mint tea or ginger?" she asked. Evelyn looked up. "What?" "For the shaking. Mint if it is fear. Ginger if it is nausea." Evelyn let out a small, broken laugh. "What if it is both? Then I make both." Rosa moved around the room with quiet purpose. She had worked in large houses for 30 years. She knew when not to ask questions too loudly. After a few minutes, she handed Evelyn a mug. "Mrs. Bell." Evelyn said, voice low. "Have you ever seen him do this before?" Rosa's face did not change, but her eyes did. "Do what, honey?" "Make someone feel trapped while calling it protection." Rosa folded her hands over her apron. "Men like Mr. Bishop do not begin with locked doors. They begin by making you feel ungrateful for wanting a key." Evelyn's throat tightened. Rosa stepped closer. "You did not hear this from me, but your husband has had doctors visit this house when you were not home. Lawyers, too. Papers carried in black folders. I clean rooms. People forget the woman with the mop has ears." "Would you say that to someone else?" Rosa's eyes sharpened. "Depends who is asking. Someone who wants to leave alive." The words hung there between them. Rosa reached for a towel and folded it slowly. "My sister married a man who loved her so much. He chose her clothes, her friends, her church, her doctor, and finally the words on her headstone." Evelyn could not speak. Rosa placed the folded towel on the stack. "So yes," she said. "For the right person, I would say plenty." That afternoon, Evelyn made her first call. Not from her phone. Roman's phone could not be trusted. The house lines could not be trusted. The driver could not be trusted. So she waited until a charity committee luncheon downtown excused herself to the restroom and walked through the service hallway into the alley behind the restaurant. Cold air hit her face. She bought a prepaid phone from a convenience store 2 blocks away and called the only person besides her father whose name appeared more than once in the box. Miles Donovan. He answered on the 4th ring. Donovan. My name is Evelyn Carter Bishop. My father was Warren Carter. Silence. Then a chair moved. Where are you? In an alley behind a restaurant. Are you alone? For the moment. Do not go home with any documents. Do you understand me? Evelyn closed her eyes. So you know. I know enough to know this line is not safe. Meet me tomorrow at 9. There is a diner off Route 41 called Mary's Table. Sit in the back booth. Wear something blue. I am pregnant. His voice softened, but not by much. Then come hungry. We will order breakfast and save your life at the same time. The next morning, Evelyn told Roman she had a prenatal yoga consultation. He barely looked up from his tablet. Take Paul. I thought I would drive myself. The doctor said independence helps mood. Roman's gaze lifted. For half a second she thought he would refuse. Then he smiled. Fine. But text me when you arrive. I will. She drove the old Ford Roman hated because he refused to ride in it and therefore rarely tracked it closely. The car smelled faintly of dust coffee and her life before him. Mary's Table sat between a tire shop and a closed florist. Inside, the coffee was burnt, the booths were cracked, and nobody looked important enough to follow. Miles Donovan was already there. He was in his early 60s, silver-haired, broad-shouldered, with tired eyes, and a navy suit that had seen better mornings. He stood when she approached. You look like Warren, he said. Evelyn sat down carefully. I do not know if that is comforting right now. It should be. Your father was the smartest man I ever watched make terrible choices. She slid the folder across the table. Miles opened it. For 10 minutes he read without touching his coffee. The more he read, the stiller he became. Finally, he closed the folder and looked at her. Does Roman know you have this? No. Good. That may be the only reason you are still breathing freely. Evelyn's hand moved to her belly. Miles noticed and lowered his voice. What has he done? She told him enough. Not everything. Not yet. The office door, the wish, the custody drafts, the medical center, the accounts in her name. Miles listened like a man building a case in his head. When she finished, he exhaled slowly. Your father left you a legal cannon. Can it fire? Yes. Can it miss if we rush? That answer scared her more than no. Miles leaned forward. Roman's legitimate holdings are not as clean as he pretends, but they are documented. Your father structured several of them with hidden Carter interests. If we trigger those interests properly, you can take control of enough of Roman's public empire to cripple him. How much? Maybe half. Maybe more, depending on what has changed. Evelyn stared at him. Why would Roman sign anything like that? Because men like Roman believe lawyers exist to decorate their certainty. Your father gave him what he wanted on the surface. Speed, secrecy, legitimacy. Underneath, he built traps. Can Roman fight it? He can try. But to fight it fully, he must explain why these companies are worth fighting over. That leads to discovery. Discovery leads to questions. Questions lead to prison if the wrong agency starts asking. A waitress came by. Miles ordered pancakes for Evelyn without asking. You need to eat, he said when she frowned. My life is falling apart. Exactly. Protein too. Despite herself, she laughed. The sound surprised her. Miles did not smile, but his eyes softened. We are going to do this carefully. First, we verify everything. Second, we gather proof of his plan against you. Third, we secure your exit. You do not confront him. You do not threaten him. You do not let pride buy him time to hurt you. Evelyn looked through the diner window at traffic sliding past on wet pavement. I am afraid, she said. You should be. That is not comforting. I am not here to comfort you. I am here to keep you alive. The pancakes arrived. Evelyn took one bite because Miles watched her until she did. Over the next 2 weeks, Evelyn lived 2 lives. In one, she was Roman Bishop's pregnant wife. She smiled beside him at foundation events. She wore soft colors. She touched his arm when donors approached. She let reporters photograph them beneath banners about family values. In the other, she was Warren Carter's daughter. She met Miles in diners' parking lots and once in the back room of a church whose pastor owed her father a favor. She delivered copies of documents. She recorded Roman's insults when he forgot walls could listen. She saved texts where he called her emotional, difficult, ungrateful. She gathered medical records showing rising stress and anxiety. Rosa gave a statement in careful, plain language about what she had witnessed. Every piece mattered. Every piece made the cage visible. Still, the danger tightened. Roman began watching her more closely. He asked why she seemed distracted. He commented that pregnancy made women irrational. He suggested she stop driving. He mentioned hiring a live-in nurse after the birth. A nurse for the baby, Evelyn asked. For you, he said, just until you are stable. Stable. The word chilled her. Then came the pain. It happened on a Thursday evening in the kitchen. Evelyn had gone downstairs for water when a sharp cramp cut across her belly. She grabbed the counter breath, leaving her body in a gasp. Rosa was beside her in seconds. Sit down. I am fine. You are white as flour. Sit. Another wave came. Evelyn bent forward, fear roaring through her. Rosa called Roman. Evelyn heard his voice through the phone, smooth and irritated. I am in a meeting. She is in pain, Mr. Bishop. Then call the doctor. She is frightened. Pregnant women get frightened. Handle it. Rosa's face hardened. Yes, sir. She ended the call. The pain eased 10 minutes later. The doctor said it sounded like false labor, but told her to rest and monitor closely. Rosa stayed with her until her breathing steadied. Evelyn lay on the sofa, one hand over her belly, staring at the ceiling. Roman had not called back. Not once. That night she opened the hidden voice recorder app on the prepaid phone. Her voice came out low but steady. My name is Evelyn Carter Bishop. I am 7 months pregnant. If something happens to me, it was not an accident, and I did not run because I was unstable. I ran because my husband was planning to take my child and erase me. She paused as the baby moved beneath her palm. Roman Bishop believes I am alone. I am not. My father left me proof. I have witnesses. I have counsel. And I have a daughter who will not be born into a cage if I can help it. She saved the file. Then she uploaded it to 3 secure accounts Miles had created. Outside the bedroom windows, the lake was black and restless. Behind her, the mansion slept. Evelyn placed the phone beneath a loose floorboard inside the nursery closet and stood slowly, one hand braced against the wall. Fear was still there. It moved with her, breathed with her, followed her into every room. But it no longer owned the whole house inside her chest. At the end of the hall, Roman's office door remained closed, polished, silent, certain. Evelyn looked at it for a long moment. Then she turned away and began preparing the life he would never see coming. Evelyn began with the smallest things. Not suitcases, not passports, not a dramatic rush through the front gate with Roman's men shouting behind her. That was how frightened people ran in movies. Evelyn did not have the luxury of being cinematic inside her own life. She had a child beneath her heart, a husband who counted exits, and a house full of people paid to notice what did not belong. So she moved like dust. A blouse went missing first, then a pair of flat shoes, then a bottle of prenatal vitamins with a second phone tucked inside the cardboard packaging. Then copies of medical records folded into the lining of a maternity coat and carried out beneath her arm, while she smiled at Paul and said she was donating clothes that no longer fit. Every small act felt enormous. Every closed door sounded like a warning. The old Ford became her hiding place on wheels. Roman had forgotten about it because he had no respect for anything he could not display. It sat in the far corner of the garage beneath a thin skin of dust silver paint, dulled by winter air, one back tire a little low. To Roman, it was sentimental clutter. To Evelyn, it was the last object in the estate that belonged only to her. She drove it twice a week under the excuse of prenatal yoga grocery cravings and one carefully staged appointment with a seamstress in Evanston. Each trip gave her 20 or 30 minutes alone. She used them to move pieces of herself out of Roman's world. A storage unit outside Milwaukee received the first box, then a second, then a third. Miles Donovan arranged an apartment in Madison under the name of a small property company connected to one of Warren Carter's old trusts. The company had no obvious tie to Evelyn. The lease was clean. The rent came from money Roman had never touched. Miles sent her no address by text. He wrote it once on a napkin at Mary's table, then watched her memorize it before burning it in the ashtray outside. "Say it back," he said. Evelyn repeated the street number, the building name, the entry code, and the parking space. Miles nodded. Again, she repeated it. "Good. Nothing written? Nothing saved? Do you always sound like a man preparing someone for war?" His eyes moved to her belly. "Only when someone already is." The apartment was small and ordinary, which made Evelyn love it immediately. 800 square feet above a bakery with old wooden floors, a narrow kitchen, and windows that looked over a quiet street where students carried coffee and old men walked dogs in thick coats. The first time she stepped inside, she stood in the center of the living room and waited for the fear to tell her this was impossible. Instead, the room smelled like fresh paint and bread from downstairs. She cried so hard she had to sit on the floor. Ava Brooks, the private security consultant Miles had hired, stood near the door and pretended not to notice. Ava was not warm in the way Rosa was warm. She was lean, sharp-eyed, and calm in a way that made Evelyn feel less ridiculous for being afraid. She checked windows locks, sight lines, stairwells, and the roof access before she said a single comforting thing. "This can work," Ava said. Evelyn wiped her face. "Can work is not the same as safe." "No," Ava said. "But safe is not a place. It is a system. We build it." Over the next 3 weeks, they built what they could. A crib arrived in a plain box. Evelyn assembled it herself while Ava read the instructions aloud and drank black coffee from a paper cup. A second-hand rocking chair came from a local seller who did not ask questions. Baby clothes were washed and folded into drawers, diapers stacked in the closet. A kettle sat on the counter. A spare charger waited beside the bed. A bag for the hospital rested under the sink, not by the door. Everything had a purpose. Nothing looked like an escape. Back at the mansion, Evelyn became softer than ever. She let Roman believe pregnancy had made her tired and pliable. She slept more. She complained less. She asked for soup. She touched her lower back as if aches, not strategy, occupied her mind. When Roman spoke, she listened with that gentle blankness he mistook for surrender. One evening, he found her in the library reading a baby name book. He poured himself whiskey and glanced at the page. "Still doing that? It helps pass the time. We have plenty of time." Evelyn looked at him over the book. "Do we?" Roman smiled, but his eyes stayed cool. For names, yes. He came closer and took the book from her hand. His thumb moved over the list. Dominic, he said. Strong. Traditional. What if it is not a boy? His thumb stopped. For a moment, the fire cracked in the hearth. Then we choose something graceful. Graceful? Evelyn repeated. Girls should have names that sound soft. Evelyn placed her palm over her belly. Inside, the baby moved. Roman noticed the movement and set his glass down. He rested his hand over hers, pressing just enough to remind her he believed everything under his roof answered to him. My child will have every advantage, he said. Evelyn looked at his hand on her body and imagined removing his name from everything. Yes, she said. She will. He did not catch the word. Or if he did, he chose not to hear it. The legal documents were ready by the first week of December. Miles spread them across a conference table in his office while Evelyn sat across from him in a wool coat and gloves, though the room was warm. Ava stood near the window watching the street below. Miles spoke carefully. Once these are filed and delivered, Roman knows, not suspects, knows. You need to be gone before 9 in the morning. How long before he understands the full damage his lawyers might see pieces right away? The full shape may be hours. How many hours Miles removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose? 4, if they are excellent. 6, if they are arrogant. Roman hires arrogant men. Evelyn almost smiled. Then Miles slid a final page toward her. This is the activation letter for the Bishop Family Foundation. Once signed, you become acting chair under the Carter Contingency Clause. The board cannot remove you without opening itself to audit. Roman cannot challenge without inviting discovery. Evelyn stared at the line where her signature belonged. The foundation had been Roman's favorite mask. Women in crisis, children's hospitals, scholarship funds, press photos, white roses on every table. She had stood beside him at those events while donors thanked him for his generosity. Her pen hovered. What happens to the money? We freeze questionable movement first. Then we audit. Then we rebuild into something real. Miles looked at her. That is what you want. It is what it should have been. She signed. Her name looked smaller than the decision. Miles gathered the pages with a reverence that made the room feel almost sacred. There is no soft way through this part, he said. I stopped expecting softness. He studied her face. Evelyn, listen to me. You do not owe him a final conversation. You do not owe him an explanation. Men like Roman use explanations as handles. Do not give him one. She nodded. But that night back at the mansion, the temptation came anyway. Roman returned after midnight. The house had already dimmed itself around his absence. Evelyn lay in bed with her eyes closed, listening as he entered the room, removed his jacket, set down his watch, and loosened his tie in the dark. He smelled like cold air and another woman's perfume, faint but unmistakable. Once that would have wounded her. Now it merely joined the evidence of who he was. He stood beside the bed longer than usual. Are you awake? Evelyn opened her eyes. Yes. Roman sat on the edge of the mattress. The bedside lamp was off, so his face was half shadow, half moonlight. You have been quiet lately. I am tired. I know the difference. Her pulse tightened. Roman reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. The gesture was almost tender. Almost. You understand why I worry, he said. Your moods, your isolation. The pregnancy. My isolation was not my idea. His hand paused. Careful. There was that word again. Evelyn looked at him in the dark and felt with sudden force the life she might have lived if he had been the man he pretended to be. A husband beside her. A baby between them. A home with light in the windows. The grief came so quickly it surprised her. Not grief for Roman, grief for the version of herself who had believed him. "I loved you," she said. Roman's expression changed just slightly. Suspicion first, then irritation. "You say that like a goodbye." Evelyn held his gaze. "I say it like a fact." For a moment, she nearly told him everything. She nearly said, "Warren Carter left me the keys." She nearly said, "Tomorrow your foundation becomes mine." She nearly said, "You wished me gone and I am about to grant it." But pride was expensive and she had a daughter to protect. So she turned onto her side. "I need to sleep." Roman watched her for a few seconds longer. Then he undressed and got into bed without touching her. Within minutes, his breathing deepened. Evelyn stayed awake. At 4:12, she rose. The floor was cold beneath her feet. She moved slowly, giving her body time to adjust to the weight of pregnancy and fear. In the bathroom, she dressed in jeans, a gray sweater, thick socks, and soft boots. She pulled her hair back. She put no makeup on. She wore only her mother's small gold ring on a chain beneath her sweater. In the mirror, she looked younger and older than she had the day before. She took the steel lockbox from the closet. It was empty now, except for Warren's letter and one photograph of him standing beside her mother on a beach in Michigan. She placed both inside her canvas bag. Then she went to the nursery. For a moment, she stood beside the untouched crib Roman had paid for and never truly seen. She ran her fingers along the smooth white rail. The room looked peaceful. That was the lie of beautiful rooms. They could make captivity look gentle. Evelyn took the small Silver Star mobile from above the crib. Not because it was valuable, because she had chosen it. In the hallway, Rosa waited near the service stairs in a robe and slippers, her gray hair braided down her back. Neither woman spoke at first. Rosa held out a thermos and a paper bag. "Tea, toast, apples. You will forget to eat." Evelyn's eyes burned. "Rosa." "No goodbyes in hallways," Rosa said softly. They echo. Evelyn stepped forward and embraced her carefully around the belly. Rosa held her tight. "The gate alarm will sleep for 7 minutes," Rosa whispered. "After that it wakes up angry." Evelyn pulled back. "Come with me." Rosa's smile was sad. "My leaving would point too many fingers at you. I stay useful here a little longer. He will know you helped. He will suspect. That is not the same as knowing." Evelyn wanted to argue. Rosa touched her cheek. "Go raise that baby somewhere doors open from the inside." Evelyn swallowed the sob in her throat and nodded. She moved through the east wing last. Roman's office opened beneath the code she had stolen from Reflections and Repetition. The room smelled of leather and old smoke. The desk waited in perfect order as if the man who owned it believed the world could never be rearranged without his permission. Evelyn placed a black box in the center. Inside were copies of the activated legal documents, recordings, custody drafts, medical center correspondence statements, and a single letter. She had rewritten the letter 7 times. In the end, she kept only what mattered. "Roman, you wished I would vanish. I have. But I am not your missing wife. I am your consequence. Everything you believed you owned was never as secure as you thought. Everything you planned for me has been documented. Everything you intended for my child ends here. Do not look for mercy in the ruins. You never built any." Evelyn Carter. She signed Carter, not Bishop. Then she left his office door open. By 4:30, she was in the garage. The Ford started on the second try, coughing once before settling into a rough, faithful hum. Evelyn rested both hands on the wheel and breathed through a wave of nausea. The side gate opened. Rosa had done it. Evelyn drove out slowly, headlights cutting through the cold dark. No one shouted. No alarm sounded. The mansion remained behind her, huge and pale, watching, like a thing that could not believe it had been disobeyed. She did not speed until the trees swallowed the house. Then she pressed the gas. Lake Forest gave way to highway. Highway gave way to open stretches of frozen fields and sleeping towns. The sky began to pale near the horizon. Evelyn drove with both hands fixed on the wheel, the thermos warm between her knees, the baby shifting low in her belly. At a rest stop near the Wisconsin border, she pulled over long enough to destroy the phone Roman knew about. Ava had taught her how. Battery removed. SIM broken. Case cracked. Pieces placed in 3 different trash bins. Her hands shook afterward. Not from regret, from release. She reached Madison just after sunrise. The bakery below the apartment had begun its morning work, and the smell of bread rose through the stairwell like a blessing. Ava opened the door before Evelyn knocked. "You made it." Evelyn stepped inside. For 3 seconds, she stood there, bag over her shoulder, coat damp with fog, cheeks pale from the drive. Then her knees weakened. Ava caught her by the arms. "I am fine," Evelyn said automatically. "No, you are not," Ava said. "But you are here." The apartment looked exactly as Evelyn had left it. The crib in the corner of the small bedroom, the kettle on the stove, the folded baby clothes, the ordinary curtains, the narrow bed with clean sheets. She locked the door. Then the deadbolt. Then the chain. The sound was small. It felt like a prayer. At 9:03, Roman entered his office. Evelyn did not see it happen, but Miles described enough later that her imagination filled in the rest. Roman in his dark suit. Roman annoyed by the open door. Roman seeing the black box on his desk. Roman reading the letter first because ego made him curious. Roman smiling at the word vanish. Then the documents. The smile gone. The phone calls began at 9:17. First to his attorney. Then to the foundation board. Then to someone at Whitestone Gallery. Then to his bank. Then to Cole Maddox. His voice grew louder with each call. By 9:45, Evelyn's burner phone vibrated on the kitchen counter. Blocked number. She looked at it until the ringing stopped. It began again. Ava stood beside the window. "Do not answer. I know." It rang 7 times before Evelyn powered it off and placed it in a drawer. At 10:12, Miles emailed through the encrypted account. "Documents delivered. Foundation transfer accepted. Trust control in motion. Roman's legal team is demanding emergency conference. I told them I am available after lunch." Evelyn read the message twice. Then she made toast because Rosa had been right. She had forgotten food existed. The victory did not feel like triumph. It felt like standing on a frozen lake and hearing the first crack behind her. By afternoon, the first pieces of Roman's public empire had begun shifting under her name. The Bishop Family Foundation was locked from outgoing transfers pending audit. Whitestone Gallery's operating company froze 3 private sales. North Pier Shipping received notice of management review. Lake County Development Trust recognized the Carter Voting Authority. Each action was legal. Each action was devastating. Roman could not scream theft without opening the rooms where theft had lived for years. That was Warren Carter's final genius. He had built a trap that punished Roman for explaining it. Still, Roman had one weapon left. The evening news carried his face before sunset. Evelyn stood in the apartment kitchen, one hand resting on the counter, watching Roman Bishop step through the front doors of the Lake Forest mansion in a charcoal coat. Cameras flashed. His face was pale, strained, beautifully wounded. A reporter called his name. Roman looked directly into the cameras. "My wife is pregnant," he said, voice rough with manufactured fear. "She has been under significant emotional strain. I only want Evelyn and our child found safely. If she sees this, I want her to know she is loved, she is forgiven, and she needs to come home." Evelyn felt the room tilt. Ava cursed under her breath. Roman lowered his eyes as if emotion had overcome him. Then the caption appeared beneath his face. Chicago businessman pleads for missing pregnant wife to return home. Missing, pregnant, unstable, loved, forgiven. There it was, the cage rebuilt in public language. Evelyn turned from the television and opened the drawer. Her fingers closed around the burner phone. She powered it on and called Miles. He answered immediately. "I saw. He is already doing it," she said. "Yes, he is making himself the husband and me the breakdown." "I know." Evelyn looked at Roman's face on the muted screen. The man who had wished her gone now begged the world to help him find her. Her daughter moved beneath her hand, strong and sharp. Evelyn's voice came out calm. "Release everything." Miles did not answer right away. On the other end of the line, Evelyn heard paper shifting a chair, creaking the faint hum of an office that had not slept in weeks. "Once I send it," he said, "Roman stops pretending this is private." Evelyn kept her eyes on the television. Roman stood under the mansion lights with his grief arranged perfectly across his face. His mouth moved without sound, now muted by Ava, but Evelyn could still feel the shape of his lie. "He already made it public," she said. "He just forgot I have a voice." Miles exhaled. "All right." A click sounded through the line. Then another. Evelyn imagined the files leaving his hands. Recordings, photographs, legal drafts, medical correspondence, witness statements. Her father's clauses, Roman's own words sharpened by truth and sent into the city he thought he owned. When she hung up, the apartment became painfully quiet. Ava stood by the window, one hand near the pistol beneath her jacket, watching the street below. The bakery had closed for the night. Across the road, a student in a red scarf walked past with headphones on, unaware that a war had just begun inside an upstairs apartment with yellow kitchen light and a baby crib in the next room. Evelyn lowered herself into a chair. Her hands were steady. That frightened her more than shaking would have. The story broke at 6:17, not through gossip pages, not through a soft interview that could be dismissed as emotion. Miles had given everything to Lena Hart, an investigative reporter in Chicago, known for making rich men sweat through expensive suits. Lena did not write like someone asking permission. The headline filled Evelyn's laptop screen. "Pregnant wife of Roman bishop says she fled coercive control, reveals hidden charity fraud." Evelyn read the first paragraph and felt something inside her split open. Not pain. Exposure. Her life was no longer locked behind Roman's gates. The world could see the hallway, the office door, the medical letters, the custody plans, the foundation money moving through polished rooms and back channels. The article did not call her unstable. It called her documented. It called her represented by counsel. It called Roman's plea for her return a calculated attempt to control the narrative. Ava stood behind her, reading over her shoulder. "Good reporter," she said. Evelyn scrolled. There was a partial transcript of Roman's voice speaking to Cole Maddox in his office. "She irritates me. Some nights I wish she would just vanish." Evelyn stopped there. Seeing the words hurt differently than hearing them. On the screen they looked less like a wound and more like evidence. Within an hour, every local outlet had picked it up. By nightfall, national media joined. Roman Bishop, once described as a powerful Chicago philanthropist, became the subject of panels' legal commentary and careful phrases like alleged abuse, possible financial misconduct, and suspected organized crime ties. His foundation website crashed. Whitestone Gallery closed its public phone line. North Pier Shipping released a statement so empty it sounded frightened. Evelyn watched it all from the kitchen table in Madison, wrapped in a blanket, drinking tea gone cold. Then the phone rang. Unknown number. Ava looked at the screen. No. Evelyn stared at it. The ringing stopped. It began again. Ava reached for the phone, but Evelyn touched her wrist. I need to hear him. You do not. I need to know which version of him is coming. Ava studied her, then nodded once. Speaker. I record. Evelyn answered. For 2 seconds there was only breathing. Then Roman's voice filled the small room. Evelyn. The sound of her name in his mouth made the baby shift hard beneath her ribs. She pressed a hand to her belly. Roman, you have made an ugly mistake. Funny. That is what I called our marriage. Ava's eyes flicked toward her, almost impressed. Roman's breath tightened. You think humiliating me protects you. I think telling the truth protects me better than your version of love. My version of love put a roof over your head. No. Your money put a roof over my head. Your love put locks on the doors. Silence. She could hear him controlling himself. She knew that silence now. It was the silence before a hand tightened, before a room changed temperature, before someone learned which words cost too much. You took what belongs to me, he said. Your lawyers can speak to mine. I am not talking about paperwork. Evelyn's throat closed. Roman's voice lowered. You are carrying my child. Our daughter, Evelyn said. Another silence. It was small, but she heard the crack in him. Daughter Evelyn shut her eyes. She had not meant to give him that. Yes, a girl. Not wonder. Not softness. Not joy. Calculation. Evelyn opened her eyes and looked at the crib in the next room. Yes, Roman, a girl. He gave a quiet laugh, but it had no warmth. Then perhaps this does not need to become as complicated as you are making it. Ava's jaw hardened. Evelyn felt cold spread slowly through her body. What does that mean? It means a son carries a name. A daughter can be discussed. For one heartbeat, Evelyn could not speak. Roman had finally said the hidden thing out loud. Not just that he did not love her. Not just that he wanted control. But that even the child he claimed to want had value only if she served his idea of legacy. You will never meet her, Evelyn said. His voice turned sharp. Do not confuse a temporary advantage with power. Do not confuse fear with obedience. You are tired, pregnant, alone, surrounded by strangers who will leave the second this becomes inconvenient. Evelyn looked at Ava, who stood still as stone beside the window. I am not alone. You are exactly as alone as I decide to make you. There he was. Not the wounded husband on television. Not the devoted father. Not the man who once held her grief like something sacred. The real Roman. A man who believed people existed inside the boundaries of his permission. Stay away from us, Evelyn said. Come home, and I can forgive this. You do not have anything I need. His voice softened. It scared her more than the anger. Sweetheart, you have no idea what I still have. Evelyn hung up. For a few seconds, neither woman moved. Then Ava ended the recording and sent it to Miles. He said enough, Ava said. Evelyn rubbed a hand over her face. He always does. The first car appeared that night. Black SUV, tinted windows, no front plate. It circled the block, twice slow enough to be seen, fast enough to deny. Ava watched from the darkened apartment with binoculars and called it in to her security team. By morning, there were 3 blocked calls, 2 messages without words, and a photo slipped under the apartment door. Evelyn standing outside the bakery the day before. The picture had been taken from across the street. She stared at it until Ava took it from her hand. He wants your body afraid before he reaches it, Ava said. It is working. Then we answer with systems. Ava changed the locks, added sensors, moved Evelyn's bed away from the window, and arranged rotating security at the building entrance. Miles filed the phone call and photo with police. Lena Hart published a follow-up piece about the intimidation. The attention helped, but attention was not armor. It only made Roman more careful about where he aimed. The harassment came in waves, sometimes quiet, sometimes vulgar. A man followed Evelyn and Ava after a medical appointment, staying 3 cars behind until Ava pulled into a police station parking lot. Packages arrived with no return address. One contained a broken baby rattle. Another contained a copy of Evelyn's wedding photo, her face scratched out with a knife. Ava wanted her moved immediately. Miles agreed. Evelyn resisted. "I cannot keep running every time he sends a message." Ava stood in the kitchen with both hands on the back of a chair. "This is not pride territory. This is threat assessment. I am 8 months pregnant." "Exactly." Evelyn looked down at her belly. Her daughter moved restless and strong. "I need one ordinary day," she whispered. "Just one." Ava's face softened, but only slightly. "Ordinary is coming. It is not here yet." That afternoon, Ordinary moved farther away. At her prenatal appointment, Dr. Elaine Mercer wrapped the blood pressure cuff around Evelyn's arm and frowned before the machine finished reading. Again, the doctor said. Evelyn looked at Ava, who stood near the door. The cuff tightened a second time. Dr. Mercer removed it and sat on the rolling stool, her expression too careful. "Your blood pressure is too high." "How high? High enough that I am concerned." Evelyn laughed once without humor. "I can guess why. I know some of what is happening. Your attorney sent documentation for your chart, but your body does not care whether the threat is legal, emotional, or physical. Stress is stress. It changes chemistry. It changes blood flow. It changes risk." Evelyn looked away. The exam room was painted pale blue. There was a poster of a smiling infant on the wall, all soft cheeks and bright eyes. It felt obscene beside the fear in her chest. "Is she okay?" Evelyn asked. "For now, yes. Her heartbeat is strong. But I want modified bed rest, limited movement, no unnecessary outings, medication to help control the pressure, and if this worsens, we discuss early delivery." The words struck like a slap. Early delivery. Evelyn had imagined many ways Roman could harm them. A lawsuit, a car outside, a man at the door. She had not imagined her own blood becoming part of his attack. In the parking garage afterward, she leaned against the car and breathed through a wave of dizziness. Ava opened the passenger door. "Evelyn." "He is doing this from miles away," she said. "He is not even touching me." Ava's voice was quiet. "That is why men like him like fear. It travels." Evelyn pressed both hands to her belly. "I am sorry," she whispered to the child. "I am trying." The baby kicked once. Hard. Ava looked down. Evelyn almost smiled. "She has opinions." "Good," Ava said. "She will need them." That evening, Miles called with a voice Evelyn had never heard from him before. Tight, controlled, alarmed. Cole Maddox reached out. Evelyn sat up too quickly on the couch. "Romans Cole." "Yes." "It is a trap." "Probably. Then why do you sound like you are considering it?" "Because he offered to meet in my office in daylight on camera with counsel present. He also said Roman is planning something within the next 72 hours. Ava, listening nearby, crossed the room. What kind of something, Evelyn asked. He would not say over the phone. "No. Evelyn. No, Miles. He sat in that office while Roman talked about making me disappear. I know. He did nothing. I know. Now he wants credit because the fire is reaching his shoes." Miles was quiet. Then he said, "That may still make him useful." Evelyn closed her eyes. She hated that he was right. The meeting happened the next day in Miles's conference room. Evelyn should have stayed at the apartment. Ava told her so. Miles told her so. Dr. Mercer would have told her so if anyone had been foolish enough to ask. But Evelyn needed to see Cole Maddox's eyes. Ava brought her through the building garage, up a private elevator, and into Miles's office without crossing the public lobby. Evelyn wore black not for drama, but because she refused to enter that room looking like Roman's soft little wife. Cole was already there. He stood when she entered. He looked older outside Roman's shadow. Late 40s, maybe? Brown hair graying at the temples. Expensive coat. Face drawn with the sleeplessness of a man who had spent too long close to consequences. "Mrs. Bishop," he said. "Do not call me that." A flicker of something crossed his face. "Ms. Carter." Evelyn sat across from him. Miles placed a recorder in the center of the table. "This conversation is documented," Miles said. "You understand that Cole looked at the recorder. I am counting on it." Ava stood behind Evelyn's chair. Evelyn folded her hands over her belly. "Talk." Cole took an envelope from inside his coat and placed it on the table. "Roman is planning to have your apartment entered." Ava went still. Evelyn's voice stayed flat. "Entered. Staged as a random burglary. Outside contractors. No direct Bishop people. The goal is confusion, noise, a call to police after the fact. And me." Cole looked at her belly before he looked at her face. "You would be taken." The room narrowed. Miles opened the envelope and began scanning the papers inside. Cole continued. "There is a private medical facility outside Green Bay. On paper, it handles stress disorders, addiction, exhaustion, family crisis cases. High money, low visibility. Roman planned to have you admitted under an emergency psychiatric hold. Pregnancy-related psychosis. Paranoia. Delusion. He already has doctors willing to say your public accusations prove instability." Evelyn heard the blood rushing in her ears. Ava moved closer, not touching her, but near enough. "And after the baby?" Evelyn asked. Cole's jaw tightened. "Roman files emergency custody. Claims you are medically unfit. He keeps the child while your attorneys fight the hold." Miles looked up from the documents, pale with anger. "This is conspiracy to kidnap." "Yes," Cole said. "You helped plan it." Cole did not flinch. "Roman ordered me to arrange logistics. I delayed. Then I came here." Evelyn stared at him. "You want applause, number forgiveness? No." "Then what?" Cole leaned forward. For the first time, fear showed plainly in his face. "I want to stay out of a grave or a federal cell for the rest of my life. Roman is unraveling. He is not thinking like a boss anymore. He is thinking like a man who has been embarrassed. That makes him dangerous to everyone around him. So this is not conscience." "No," Cole said. "It is survival." Evelyn almost admired the honesty. Almost. "Why should I believe you?" Cole tapped the envelope. "Names, payment routes, contractor phone numbers, the facility contact, the shift change time they plan to use. I gave you enough to stop it and enough to bury me if I am lying." Miles was already making copies. Evelyn looked at the man across from her and saw what Roman's world produced. Not loyalty, not strength. Men who called fear strategy until the room caught fire. "You watched him build this," she said. Cole's eyes did not move from hers. "Yes." "You watched him isolate me." "Yes." "You heard him talk about making me disappear." "Yes." "And now you are here because he finally aimed the gun too close to you." Cole swallowed. "Yes." Evelyn nodded slowly. "Then be useful all the way." The next hours became a blur of controlled movement. Miles contacted federal authorities through a former prosecutor he trusted. Ava relocated Evelyn before sunset, not back to the Madison apartment, but to a secure farmhouse outside a small Wisconsin town where the roads were narrow. The neighbors were distant, and every entrance could be watched. Police took the initial report. Federal agents arrived after dark with polite voices and hard eyes. Evelyn sat at a wooden kitchen table while men and women in plain suits asked her to repeat details she wished she could forget. The office door, the recordings, the custody drafts, the medical facility, Roman's call, the SUV, the packages, Cole's warning. She answered until her back ached and her throat burned. At one point, the baby kicked so strongly that one agent stopped mid-question. Evelyn looked down. "She hates meetings," she said. For the first time that night, someone smiled. The planned home invasion did not reach her. 2 nights later, federal agents watched 3 men approach Evelyn's old apartment building in Madison. They carried tools, false identification, and a story about emergency maintenance. They never made it past the second door. Their arrests opened mouths fast. Contractors were not soldiers. They had no loyalty to Roman. They had invoices, burner phones, and fear. By morning, the FBI had enough to connect payment chains to one of Roman's shell companies. By afternoon, Cole had formally begun cooperating. Roman still appeared in public that day. That was the thing about men like him. They could feel the ground collapsing and still adjust their cuffs for cameras. He stood outside a courthouse in Chicago, surrounded by attorneys, telling reporters Evelyn was being manipulated by people who wanted his money. He said he loved his wife. He said he feared for his unborn child. He said wealthy families were easy targets for false stories. Evelyn watched the clip from the farmhouse living room. Ava sat beside her, cleaning her weapon with quiet efficiency. On screen, Roman looked tired for the first time. Good, Evelyn thought. Let him learn what exhaustion tastes like. That night, snow began falling over the fields. The farmhouse creaked in the wind. Evelyn lay on a narrow bed beneath a quilt that smelled faintly of cedar, listening to Ava speak in low tones with the guard outside. Her phone buzzed with a message from Miles, warrant signed. Evelyn read the 2 words 3 times. She got out of bed slowly and walked to the window. Beyond the glass, the world was white and silent. Her reflection looked back at her face, thinner eyes, darker belly round beneath an oversized sweater. She looked nothing like the woman in cream dresses beside Roman at charity dinners. Good. That woman had been a costume. At dawn, federal vehicles rolled through Roman Bishop's gates in Lake Forest. Evelyn watched it live from the farmhouse kitchen with both hands wrapped around a mug of tea. The news helicopter captured the estate from above. The long drive, the iron gates, the pale mansion against the dark lake. Agents moved like black marks across snow. The same front steps where Roman had begged for his missing wife, now filled with federal officers carrying boxes. A reporter spoke quickly, almost breathless. Federal agents are executing search warrants at the Lake Forest home of Roman Bishop, as well as several business locations connected to the Bishop Family Foundation Whitestone Gallery and North Pier Shipping Group. Ava stood behind Evelyn. Miles was on speakerphone, silent for once. Then the camera caught Roman at an upstairs window. Just for a second. White shirt, no jacket. One hand against the glass. Even through the grainy footage, Evelyn knew his posture. Rigid, furious, disbelieving. The king watching strangers enter his castle with papers signed by a judge. Evelyn set the mug down before her hands could start shaking. Her daughter moved inside her, slow and steady. Miles finally spoke through the phone. "Evelyn, I see it. This is real." On the screen, agents entered Roman's office, the room where he had wished her gone, the room where he had planned her erasure, the room where she had left him his consequence. Evelyn looked at the open door on the television and let out a breath she felt she had been holding since the night behind the mahogany paneling. Outside the farmhouse, snow kept falling. Inside, the baby kicked again. Evelyn touched her belly and whispered, "He hears us now." By noon, Roman Bishop's empire had begun bleeding through its walls. The raids did not stop at Lake Forest. Federal agents entered Whitestone Gallery while collectors stood beneath white lights, pretending they had not bought paintings with money that had traveled through too many hands. They carried out ledgers, laptops, private sale records, and a bronze sculpture wrapped in moving blankets. At North Pier shipping, men in windbreakers stood between rows of containers, while employees stared at the floor and called their lawyers. Computers were unplugged. Phones were sealed in evidence bags. A warehouse manager cried in the parking lot with a cigarette trembling between his fingers. At the Bishop Family Foundation, the front desk receptionist sat pale and silent while agents boxed donor records under a wall of framed photographs. Roman shaking hands with governors. Roman beside hospital executives. Roman smiling with children at ribbon cuttings. Roman standing next to Evelyn in a cream dress, his hand pressed to her back like a claim. Evelyn watched the reports from the farmhouse kitchen until Ava turned off the television. "That is enough for now." Evelyn did not argue. Her body had begun to feel heavy in a way that frightened her. Not tired, not sleepy, heavy as if every month of fear had finally found its weight. She lowered herself into a chair and let her hands rest on her belly. "He will not accept this," she said. Ava checked the lock on the back door. "No, but acceptance is not required for arrest." At 5:30 that evening, Miles called. His voice was hoarse. "They have enough." Evelyn closed her eyes. For what arrest? Conspiracy to kidnap, money laundering, obstruction, witness, intimidation, racketeering. There may be more after they process everything. The farmhouse went quiet around her. A log shifted in the fireplace. Ava stood near the window listening. "Is he in custody?" Evelyn asked. "Not yet. They are moving carefully. Because of his connections. Because cornered men make stupid choices." Evelyn looked out at the white field beyond the glass. Snow covered everything with a softness it had not earned. "Call me when it happens." "I will." She hung up and sat there until the light faded from the windows. That night she dreamed of the mansion. Not as it was, but as her fear had made it. Hallways stretching too long. Doors breathing in the dark. Roman's office at the end of every corridor. She walked barefoot, calling for her daughter, though the child was not yet born. Somewhere behind the walls, Roman laughed softly and told her she had misunderstood everything. She woke with a gasp. Ava was already in the doorway. "You okay?" Evelyn pressed a hand to her chest. "Dream." Ava nodded and did not ask more. The phone rang just before dawn. "Miles." Evelyn answered before the second ring. "It is done," he said. For a moment she heard only the sound of her own breathing. They arrested him outside his attorney's office. No incident. Cameras were there. Evelyn sat up slowly. Ava turned on the television without speaking. The footage appeared within minutes. Roman Bishop stepped out of a black sedan in downtown Chicago wearing a charcoal overcoat and the face of a man still convinced the sidewalk belonged to him. Two federal agents approached. One spoke. Roman's attorney moved forward, then stopped. Roman looked past the agents straight into the cameras, and for one flash of a second, Evelyn saw it. Not fear. Hatred. Then his hands were brought behind his back. The cuffs closed. Evelyn did not smile. She thought she might. She thought satisfaction might rise clean and hot. Instead, something inside her loosened so suddenly it hurt. Her eyes filled. Her hand flew to her mouth. Ava came closer but did not touch her. On the screen, Roman was guided toward a waiting vehicle. Reporters shouted questions. He did not answer. His jaw was locked. His hair was perfect. His kingdom was burning behind his eyes. Evelyn watched until the car door shut. Then she turned away and cried. Not for him. For the woman who had once believed him. For the baby who had nearly been born into his control. For Warren Carter, who had built traps because he had known monsters could wear cufflinks and kiss hands at charity dinners. For herself, because survival had demanded so much from a body already carrying life. Her phone rang again. Blocked number. Ava saw it and reached for the device. Evelyn shook her head. One last time. Evelyn. One last time. Ava started recording. Evelyn answered and said nothing. Roman's voice came through rough and stripped of polish. You destroyed me. She closed her eyes. No, Roman. I survived you. The rest was evidence. You think this ends anything, I think it ends your access to me. You were nothing before me. The words came fast now, anger without tailoring. You were a grieving little girl with a dead father and a bank account. I gave you my name. I gave you protection. I gave you a life women would kill for. You gave me walls and called them shelter. You stole my child. Evelyn looked down at her belly round beneath the quilt. No, I kept her from becoming your last chain. She is mine. She is herself. Roman laughed once, bitter and sharp. She will grow up hearing my name. Yes, Evelyn said, and she will hear the truth attached to it. The line went quiet. When Roman spoke again, his voice had lowered into something almost familiar. The old voice, the one from candlelit dinners and snowy sidewalks, the one that had once found every broken place in her and called it beautiful. Come see me, he said. Just once, before they bury me under this. No, you owe me that. I do not owe you a doorway back into my mind. His breathing changed. You loved me. I loved a mask. That is not true. It is the only true thing left between us. A guard spoke in the background. Roman's time was ending. His voice hardened. You will regret making an enemy of me. Evelyn felt the baby move steady and calm. You made an enemy of me when you mistook my silence for consent. She ended the call. Then she blocked the number and handed the phone to Ava. Ava deleted the contact log, saved the recording, and placed the phone face down on the table. Neither woman spoke for a while. Outside, the sun rose over a field untouched by gates. The days after Roman's arrest did not bring peace all at once. They brought lawyers' statements, motions, medical checks, security briefings, and headlines. They brought Roman's allies pretending they had barely known him. They brought former friends calling Evelyn with voices full of apology and curiosity. They brought strangers online calling her brave, greedy, unstable, heroic, lucky, calculating, and every other word people use when a woman refuses to die quietly. Evelyn stopped reading comments after the second day. Miles insisted. Ava agreed. Dr. Elaine Mercer demanded it. When Evelyn returned for another appointment, Dr. Mercer took her blood pressure twice, then smiled for the first time in weeks. Better. Evelyn leaned back against the exam table. Better enough. Better enough to breathe. Not enough to start running around saving the world. I was thinking about taking a nap. Now that is a treatment plan I support. The baby's heartbeat filled the room through the monitor. Fast, strong, furious with life. Evelyn turned her head toward the sound and felt the tears come again, quieter this time. Dr. Mercer lowered her voice. She sounds good. Evelyn laughed softly. She sounds angry. Good. Angry girls survive. 3 weeks before her due date, the contractions began. At first, Evelyn ignored them. She had been fooled before. False labor had become another cruel joke her body liked to play under stress. She drank water. She changed positions. She paced the farmhouse living room while snow melted against the windows. Then a contraction wrapped around her back and stole the air from her lungs. Ava looked up from the security monitor. That one was different. Evelyn gripped the arm of the couch. No kidding. Within an hour, the pattern was clear. Ava drove while Miles called ahead to a secure hospital outside Milwaukee. The sky was bruised purple with early morning. The roads were slick, the heater too hot, the world outside the windshield blurred by freezing rain. Evelyn sat in the passenger seat with one hand braced against the dashboard and the other pressed low against her belly. "I am not ready," she said. Ava changed lanes with careful speed. "No one is." "I took down a crime family. You helped." I stood up to Roman. "You did. I testified to federal agents while having swollen ankles. Very impressive." Another contraction hit. Evelyn cursed so sharply, Ava blinked. "This is worse." Ava almost smiled. "Babies do not care about your resume." At the hospital, everything became bright lights and clipped voices. Nurses moved around her with practiced calm. Miles arrived with a folder of protective orders and a face that tried very hard not to look terrified. Ava stationed herself outside the door until Evelyn grabbed her sleeve and refused to let go. "You stay." Ava looked at the nurse. The nurse looked at Evelyn. "She stays," Evelyn said again. Ava stayed. Labor stretched through the night. Hours folded into pain, breath water monitors, hands, voices. Evelyn lost track of time. She held Ava's hand so hard she apologized twice and was told to stop wasting energy. She heard Dr. Mercer's calm instructions. She heard Miles arguing with someone in the hallway after a hospital administrator questioned extra security. She heard her own voice breaking and reforming around the same words. "I cannot." Then another voice inside her answered. "You already have." When dawn touched the hospital windows, Dr. Mercer leaned close. "Evelyn, look at me. One more. Give me everything." Evelyn thought of the office door. Roman's voice. Her father's letter. Rosa's hands folding towels. The old Ford crossing the state line. The black box on Roman's desk. Federal agents entering the room where he had planned to erase her. She bore down with a sound that came from somewhere deeper than fear. At 5:36 in the morning, her daughter entered the world screaming. The sound split Evelyn open and remade her. A nurse placed the baby on her chest, warm and slippery and furious. Tiny fists, dark hair, a mouth wide with protest. Evelyn stared at her as if the universe had placed a star directly against her skin. "Hi, Evelyn," whispered sobbing. "Hi, baby." The child quieted at the sound of her voice. Ava turned away, pretending to check the door. Miles stood in the corner with tears openly running down his face. Dr. Mercer laughed softly. "She is perfect." Evelyn touched one finger to her daughter's cheek. "Lily," she said. The room stilled. "Lily Carter, not Bishop." "Carter." The nurse repeated it as she wrote the name down. "Lily Carter." Evelyn kissed her daughter's forehead. "Nobody gets to make us disappear." For 2 days, the hospital room became the smallest safe world Evelyn had ever known. Lily slept against her chest. Lily cried with startling force. Lily opened dark eyes and stared at nothing as if already judging the room. Evelyn learned the strange rhythms of feeding, burping, swaddling, waking, worrying. Her body ached. Her heart felt raw. She was exhausted past reason and happier than she trusted. Security remained tight. No visitors without approval. No public birth announcement. No photographs online. Rosa sent a small knitted blanket through Miles' pale yellow with uneven edges. Inside the package was a note. "Doors open from the inside." Evelyn pressed the blanket to her face and cried again. On the third morning, Miles entered with a look that ended the softness. "What?" He sat beside the bed. Margaret Bishop filed a petition. Evelyn held Lily closer. Roman's mother. Margaret Bishop had always moved through rooms like a blade in silk. Silver hair, pale suits, diamonds worn like military honors. She had never raised her voice in Evelyn's presence because she had never needed to. Her disapproval could lower the temperature of a ballroom. "What does she want?" Evelyn asked, though she already knew. Access to Lily. Grandparent visitation. She claims you are isolating the child from her family out of spite. Lily yawned, tiny mouth opening against Evelyn's chest. Evelyn looked down at her. She is 3 days old. Motions do not require decency. A week later, Evelyn met Margaret in a controlled conference room at Miles's office. Not because she wanted to. Because Miles said judges respected reasonable behavior when reasonable behavior could not endanger the child. Ava stood inside the room this time. Margaret arrived in winter white, not a wrinkle in sight. She looked at Evelyn first, then at the bassinet beside her. Not with tenderness, with assessment. Lily, Margaret said. Evelyn placed a hand on the bassinet edge. Yes, she has bishop eyes. She has her own eyes. Margaret's mouth curved faintly. You cannot erase blood. No, Evelyn said. But I can protect her from people who think blood is ownership. Margaret removed her gloves finger by finger. My son is facing charges. Charges are not convictions. Your son planned to have me kidnapped before I gave birth. Roman has always been intense. Evelyn laughed once. Is that what we call it in your family? Margaret's eyes sharpened. You are emotional. I am postpartum. I am also correct. Miles shifted slightly at the table, but Evelyn did not look at him. Margaret leaned forward. You walked into our name, our protection, our world. You do not get to take a bishop child and run to the countryside like a frightened girl. Evelyn felt the old fear stir, then felt Lily move softly in the bassinet. The fear settled into something harder. I walked out of a cage. My daughter will not be raised by the people who built it. Margaret stood. You think because Roman is in custody, this family has no reach. Ava took one calm step forward. Miles's voice cut through the room. Mrs. Bishop, every word in this room is being recorded. Margaret looked at the recorder, then back at Evelyn. For the first time, the mask thinned. You have no idea what you have done. Evelyn rose slowly, one hand braced on the table, the other near Lily. I know exactly what I have done. I ended the inheritance of fear. Margaret left without touching the baby. The hearing came 3 weeks later. Evelyn wore navy blue because cream no longer belonged on her skin. Lily stayed with Ava in a secure room inside the courthouse. Roman appeared by video from federal detention, his face thinner, his eyes darker. He looked less polished, but no less dangerous. The judge listened to arguments about custody, visitation, parental rights, pending criminal charges, documented threats, and the attempted abduction plan. Roman's attorney spoke of due process reputation and the importance of a father's bond. Miles stood slowly. Your Honor, a bond cannot be built from a kidnapping plot. The courtroom went silent. Evelyn testified, not dramatically, not with tears. She gave dates, words, documents, patterns, the office conversation, the medical facility, the staged instability, the bank accounts in her name, the call where Roman called his daughter negotiable. The judge asked why she believed Roman remained a threat from custody. Evelyn looked at the screen where Roman watched her. Because control was never one of his habits, she said. It was his religion. The ruling came before sunset. Evelyn retained full custody. Roman's parental access was suspended pending criminal proceedings. Margaret's petition was denied without prejudice, but any future request required psychological review, security review, and proof of no coordination with Roman or his associates. It was not perfect. It was enough. In the hallway, Miles placed a hand over his heart and leaned against the wall. I need a vacation. Evelyn managed a tired smile. You chose this career. I chose contracts. Your father dragged me into a crime saga from beyond the grave. For the first time in months, Evelyn laughed without fear. Roman's federal trial began the following fall. By then, Lily could sit up on her own and had a laugh that made serious adults behave foolishly. Evelyn lived in a modest house near a lake in Wisconsin with Ava in a guest room until the trial ended, and a security system that still felt necessary but no longer felt like a prison. The Carter-Lilly Initiative had replaced the Bishop Family Foundation. The name had been Evelyn's choice. Carter for the father who gave her keys, Lilly for the daughter who gave her a reason to use them. The money had taken months to clean. Auditors worked through records until their eyes burned. Illegal transfers were reported. Questionable donations were frozen. Some funds were surrendered as part of federal agreements. What remained became real. Emergency housing, legal aid, medical advocacy, secure transport, counseling, job placement, quiet phones for women who needed to call without being traced. Rosa joined the advisory board after leaving the mansion the day Roman's last household manager was subpoenaed. She attended her first meeting wearing a church hat and an expression that dared anyone to underestimate her. When Evelyn testified at Roman's trial, she wore the same navy suit from the custody hearing. Roman sat at the defense table. For once, he could not interrupt. The prosecutor asked her what made her leave. Evelyn looked at the jury, then at Roman. "He wished I would vanish," she said. I believed him. No one moved. She told the story cleanly. The control, the isolation, the fake concern, the documents, the plan for Lily, the private facility, the fear that lived in ordinary sounds. Roman watched her with hatred he could not disguise. Good, she thought. Let them see it. Cole Maddox testified for 3 days. He named accounts routes, shell companies, judges who had looked away, doctors who had signed false letters, and men who had been paid to keep Roman's world clean on paper. He did not ask for sympathy. None came. The jury returned guilty on the major counts. Roman stood when the verdict was read. His face did not change at first. Then Evelyn saw the truth reach him. Not remorse, never that. Only the recognition that power had failed to save him. At sentencing, Roman spoke about betrayal, about lies, about being targeted because of wealth. He never once said Evelyn's name with regret. He never once said Lily's name with love. The judge gave him decades, long enough for Lily to grow up without his shadow at the window. When it was over, Evelyn stepped outside the courthouse into cold sunlight. Reporters called her name. Cameras lifted. Miles stood beside her. Ava waited near the car. Rosa held Lily, who was bundled in a yellow coat and chewing on the corner of her mitten. A reporter asked Mrs. Bishop, "Do you feel justice was served?" Evelyn took Lily from Rosa and kissed her cold cheek. "My name is Evelyn Carter," she said, "and today my daughter and I are going home." Years passed, not easily. Freedom was not a door she walked through once. It was a room she had to learn how to live in. Some nights, Evelyn still woke at the sound of tires on wet pavement. Some mornings she checked the locks twice before remembering Roman was behind concrete and steel. Trust returned slowly. Peace returned even slower. But it returned. Lily grew into a child with wild curls, serious eyes, and a habit of asking questions exactly when adults hoped she would not. At 5, she found the old steel lockbox on a shelf in Evelyn's office. "What is that?" Evelyn looked up from a stack of foundation letters. "A box your grandfather gave me. Is there treasure?" Evelyn smiled. "Sort of." Lily climbed into the chair across from her. "What kind?" Evelyn opened the box. Inside were no ledgers now, no hidden clauses, no passwords, only letters. A woman from Ohio who escaped with 2 sons, a nurse from Detroit who used the emergency fund to leave a violent husband, a college student in Indiana who wrote that the Carter-Lilly Initiative gave her a phone, a lawyer, and the first night of sleep she had had in months. Lily touched one envelope gently. Did we help them? Yes. Because of Grandpa's box. Because of a lot of people. Grandpa, Rosa, Miles, Ava. Brave women who asked for help. Brave people who gave it. Lily thought about that. Was my dad bad? The question arrived softly. Evelyn had prepared for it for years and still felt the floor shift beneath her. She closed the box. Your father made choices that hurt people. Did he hurt you? He tried. Lily's brow furrowed. But you got away. Yes. Because you were brave. Evelyn knelt in front of her daughter. Because I was scared and I moved anyway. Lily considered this with the seriousness of a judge. Then she wrapped her arms around Evelyn's neck. I am glad you moved. Evelyn held her close and looked out the window. The lake beyond their house was bright under the afternoon sun. No gates, no guards at the door, no black cars waiting under the trees, just wind moving through tall grass. Just a child's drawings on the refrigerator, just ordinary life which Evelyn had learned was not small at all. On the shelf behind her, the steel lockbox sat in the open, no longer hidden, no longer waiting. Evelyn lifted Lily into her arms and carried her outside where the grass was wet. The sky was wide and every door behind them opened from the inside.